From this it appears that God brought things into existence from nothing pre-existing, as from matter. For if something is the effect of God, either something pre-existed it, or it did not. If not, the purpose is held, that is, that God produces some effect out of nothing pre-existing. But if something pre-existed it, either it is to proceed ad infinitum, which is not possible in natural causes, as the Philosopher proves in Metaphysics 2, or it is to come to something first, which does not presuppose anything else. And this can only be God himself. For it was shown in the first book that he himself is not the substance of anything, nor can there be anything other than God, for whom God is not the cause of being, as has been shown. It remains then that God, in the production of his effects, does not require pre-existing material from which to work. Still, each matter is contracted by a superimposed form to some species. To work, therefore, from the material above by superimposing the form in any way is to act upon some determinate species. But such an agent is a particular agent, for causes are proportional to the caused. An agent, therefore, which requires of necessity the pre-existing material from which it operates, is a particular agent. But God is active as the universal cause of being, as was shown above. Therefore, in his action, he does not require the preceding material. Again, the more universal an effect is, the higher is its specific cause. For the higher the cause, the more its power extends to more people. Now to be is more universal than to be moved. For there are some immovable beings, as the philosophers also teach, such as stones and the like. It must therefore be above the cause which acts only by moving and transforming, that cause which is the first principle of being. And this we have shown to be God. Therefore God does not act only by moving and transforming, but everything that cannot produce a thing into being, except from pre-existing matter, acts only by moving and transforming. For to make something out of matter is by a certain movement or change. It is not impossible, therefore, to produce things into existence without pre-existing matter. In addition, what it does only by motion and change does not belong to the universal cause of its being. For it is not by motion and change that a being is made from a non-being simply, but this being from this non-being. But God is the universal principle of being, as has been shown. Therefore it is not proper for him to act only by motion or by change. Therefore it does not belong to him to need the previous material in order to do anything. Further, each agent acts like himself in any way. Now each agent acts according to what he actually is. Therefore, it will be for that agent to produce an effect by causing in some way the inherent form of matter, which is actually through the form inherent in it, and not through its entire substance. Hence, the Philosopher in Metaphysics 7 proves that material things, having forms in matter, are generated by having material agents' forms in matter, not from forms existing in themselves. But God is not a being actually through something inherent in himself, but through his entire substance, as was proved above. Therefore, its proper mode of action is to produce the whole subsisting thing, not only the inherent thing, that is, the form in matter. Now every agent acts in this way, which does not require matter in its action. God, therefore, does not require pre-existing matter in his action. Again, matter is compared to the agent as receiving the action which is from him, for the act which is of the agent as from whom is of the patient as in whom. Therefore matter is required from some agent to receive its action, for the very action of the agent received in the patient is the act of the patient in the form, or some beginning of the form, in him. But God does not act by any action which it is necessary to receive in some patient, because his action is his substance, as was proved above. It does not therefore require antecedent material to produce an effect. In addition, Every agent that in acting requires pre-existing matter has matter proportionate to his action, so that whatever is in the power of the agent is entirely in the power of matter. Otherwise, he would not be able to produce into act whatever is in his active power, and thus he would have power for it in vain. But matter has no such proportion to God, for there is no power in matter to any quantity whatsoever, as is clear from the Philosopher, in 3 of the physicists. Whereas, however, the divine power is simply infinite, as was shown in the first. God, therefore, does not require a pre-existing material from which he necessarily acts. Still, the matter of different things is different, for the matter of spiritual and corporeal things is not the same, nor of heavenly and corruptible bodies. From this, it is clear that to receive, which is a property of matter, is not of the same reason in the aforesaid. For the reception which is in spiritual things is intelligible, just as the intellect receives the species of intelligibles not according to their material being. But the heavenly bodies receive a renewal of position, but not a renewal of being, like the lower bodies. Therefore, there is not one substance which has the potential to be universal. But God himself is the universally active being of the whole. Therefore, no matter corresponds to him proportionally. Therefore, it does not necessarily require material. Further, of all things in the nature of things, there is some proportion and some order. One of them must be from another, or both from someone. For order must be established in one by answering to another. Otherwise, the order or proportion would be by chance, which is impossible to establish in the first principles of things, because it would rather follow that everything else is by chance. Therefore, if any matter is proportionate to the divine action, it must either be that the one is from the other, or both from the third. But since God is the first being and the first cause, he cannot be from any third cause. It is therefore left, if any matter is found proportionate to the divine action, that it is itself the cause of it. Still, what is first in beings must be the cause of what they are, for if they were not caused, they would not have been ordained by him, as has already been shown. But between act and power there is such an order that, although in one and the same thing, which is sometimes power and sometimes act, power is prior in time to act, although act is prior to nature. Yet speaking simply, the act must be prior to the potential, which is clear from the fact that the potential is not reduced to an act, except by being in the act. But matter is a being and power. Therefore it must be that God, who is a pure act, is simply prior to them, and consequently his cause. Matter then is not necessarily presupposed to its action. Again, matter is first in a certain way, because it is a being in potentiality. But God is the cause of all things, as was shown above. Therefore God is the cause of the first matter. There is none before him. Therefore divine activity does not require a pre-existing nature. But the divine scripture confirms this truth, saying, Genesis 1:1, "In the beginning God created heaven and earth. For there is nothing else to create than to bring something into being without the preceding matter." And from this the error of the ancient philosophers who posited that matter had no cause at all is refuted by the fact that they always saw that by the actions of particular agents something precedes the action, from which they took the opinion, common to all, that nothing comes from nothing. This is true of particular agents, but they had not yet arrived at the knowledge of the universal agent, which is the active being of the whole, which need not presuppose anything in its action.